Today we have three people from BlackRock, starting with Benoit Dumas, who is not only the senior engineering lead in the company, but is also heading the Belgrade office since this year. So Benoit, Gordana, Tanya, welcome to Agile Serbia, welcome to the Regional Scrum Gathering. I'm passing you the floor right away. We'll have something like 40 minutes to hear what you have to share with us. And I'm encouraging the audience to please send in your questions. If you do have enough questions, we'll be dedicating last 5 to 10 minutes to your questions and to the discussion. As a final note, the topic of today is large enterprise transformation and how BlackRock is actually supporting that. Whoever was present in the previous session with Ari van Beneken knows that we actually had a lot of questions dedicated to large corporates, to large enterprises and how they can transform using the Agile methodology. So point is really on the spot. Benoit, ladies, the floor is yours.
Excellent. Thanks, Veronica. All right, let's get started. Welcome everyone to this first Agile fast session. What we will do today is to cover a few stories, but first some intro. So we are from BlackRock, and BlackRock is the largest asset manager in the world. We have around 9 trillion of USD. That's 200 times Serbia GDP and a bit below the whole European GDP. We are also one of the leading software provider with Aladdin platform, which is a platform that manage investment. Can we go to the next slide, please? All right. So we are, in a nutshell, a finance and a software company. Okay, so let's go to the next slide. For our talk today, I have with me two other BlackRock leaders on stage, Gordana and Tanya.
Hi everyone, I'm Gordana. I started my career working as a software engineer and worked around 6 years on software development. For the last 3 years, I work as a product owner at BlackRock, currently building one brand new product called Insight Core, which is high-class private markets data provider.
Hello guys, from my side as well. I'm Tanya and I'm Scrum Master at BlackRock, work as Agile lead on Front Invest. It is a leading software for alternative investments.
And I'm Benoit Dumas. So I recently moved to superb Serbia to lead our office with 600 exceptional people. But I'm also a global engineering leader for our Aladdin product. I currently take care of a product that is used by 500,000 users. It's called eFront Investment Cafe. So today we have one product owner, one Scrum Master, and one engineering lead. And we want to talk about the experience of Agile transformation at scale. This is a massive topic. You heard about it previously. A lot of learning, success, and failures. And on the journey to Agile at scale, which means going beyond over a few squads, it's really truly about managing change. And the change curve that you see, that I'm sure you know this curve, what you want is basically to smooth it, as much as possible. Reduce the drop to frustration and despair. And to do that, we see 3 big challenges that we need to manage well. The first one is the basic one, how to start. Even if you have some Agile already in your company, how to think about scaling. The second one is really about finding the time and resources, because you want to fit in the existing workload. It's things that are moving in progress. And the third one is how to keep the date. With a transformation, again, imagine upgrading a car while driving. Nobody wants to go to a client or the CEO and tell them, well, we need a bit of break for a few months. The worst thing is different perspective on these important problems. As you can imagine, we had many discussions, trial and errors on the journey. So we will not focus on explaining your best practices of state-of-the-art methodology. I think you've already heard a lot about that. You will hear some of the personal perspective from us 3 of us. And hopefully this view will help you with your own journey or your future journeys. But first, let's see why we decided to start an agile transformation. Some obvious reasons are higher quality, more predictability, faster deliveries. But really, to understand, I just want to tell you a bit of the story of Aladdin. When the BlackRock 8 founders got together to create a new financial company, it was just before the 80s. They knew from their past experience they had to use tech at its core. They hired a few engineers, bought a Sun server, if you remember. They didn't have so much space, so they put it in the coffee room, and they started to build powerful risk model. Then some clients started to ask, because we were quite successful, let us use your technology to review our own investment. And that's how we started in 1999 selling to client Aladdin, the platform. And side story, we didn't know how to package it on the DVD, if you remember DVD. We say, okay, let's give separate instance of our server and give access to our client. And that was the first SaaS platform in finance, one of the first platform in finance. And as we grow, and today Aladdin Software is 1 billion of revenue, we also grow our teams, our product line. It was a lot of organic growth. It was okay for some time, but starting to be a bit fragile. Every team has a bit their own freedom of implementing what kind of work best in their context. But how do you go from there to 2 billion? To do that, you need to be closer to client need. You need to have better execution, better quality, and to do that faster. Well, we need to be more agile and at scale because we have 2,000 developers today. So we decided to focus on that and really scaling the model. We have a new centralized function that look at standard trainings and coaching that the first one is how to start. Most teams these days will pick a flavor of Agile, Scrum, pick a methodology and you just force it down the throat of all the teams and it doesn't work so well. Another short story. There were this mid-sized tech company. They acquired a smaller product company. And this company was very agile, very high growth. And basically they say, well, that's great. Let's use that and transform the whole company to agile at scale. But what they experience is a full degradation. And even for the new product they acquire, because in that case, agile was the goal. But that couldn't be the case. Agile is not the goal. You need to define goals of the transformation you want to achieve and the metrics before you start. This is very important. We saw that was the key because we wanted to remind each team why we are moving to Agile. So we need to be clear on the reason and the metrics to look at. In our case, the goal was to expand the client base and increase velocity and quality. And the simple metrics we put together was around delivery frequencies, lower regression, shorter lead time, from stories to production. But as an engineering lead, I want the transformation to happen fast. But you need to be very careful, not to leave people under stress or disrupt too much. So agile needs to be agile, which needs to be agile, which needs to be agile. You cannot change with a snap of a finger. So you need goals and you need to be pragmatic and realistic.
Yes, exactly. But also you need to fake it in the beginning. So you need to start. You say, okay, we're going to be agile. We have the decision. But what actually it means how we start on this bottom level, let's say. So we start with picking some framework. Let's do something by the book. Let's organize somehow so that we actually start with some ceremonies. So you know how it looks like actually in the beginning. It feels like virtual reality. It's not natural. Everything seems so fake. In stand-ups, you talk about, okay, what did you do yesterday? What are you going to do today? What are your plans for tomorrow? And so on and so on. And the guys actually start to making fun of that, which actually is a good point. It means that you have open communication, which is the crucial thing about all ceremonies and all about agility. But also I thought about, the first guy who ever said good afternoon. So imagine how silly that sounds, or say hello to your mom or something like that. So Today, if you do not say good afternoon, you're actually rude. So to translate it literally from Serbian to English, you're not cultural. So here we are talking about culture, and culture is actually a consequences of the organization, of how you actually are organized. So how actually it goes, and sprint plannings as well in the beginning is, what story points to put in there? 5, 8. Okay, Scrum Master, tell us, what will look good in your dashboards. So my dashboards there in the beginning. So on retrospectives, great time for multitasking, it is really usually silent in the beginning, so you don't have any much expectation of that. But having in mind, and everything takes so much time, so it takes time for stand-ups, it takes time for all ceremonies and everything in there, for groomings, refinements, all take so much time. It's a little bit frustrated in there. So you as a Scrum Master, what you should do. So first of all, you need to be patient. You need to be aware that it is just the beginning of this journey. So we need to somehow measure it as well. So to measure maturity of the teams. So we in BlackRock have some levels in there. But this journey, meaning starting with these, applying just the process, and of course, changing it. You tell the guy, this is a fake, okay, but be honest with that and let's change it, because people are processes. So we will get aligned with that. So how we go with that, you just tell them, give it a shot. Let's try it. What are we going to lose? If not, something is not working, we will change it. Not a big deal. But the crucial point in here is be patient and have as much as possible frequent communication. So push the communication and make some fruitful ground for your guys that they can actually grow their maturity. Applying process, improving process there, coming back to the top level when you have completely mature teams, when you have autonomous and predictable team. But just to make clear, on this stage, this is actually a journey. So top level doesn't mean you're done. You're agile. You always need to improve. And now, going back to Gotza, what's your perspective as a product owner and what your reality looks like in this early stage, Gotza?
Well, it looks like building a new Lego, excited to start, but then you take a look to all those bricks scattered around you without any order, and you need to figure out where to start and how to find some order in there if you want to build something in the end, of course. So how product owner brings order from the early beginning, it's by building backlog and creating user stories. And I'm sure majority of us here today know how user stories should look like. And it's, it should start with, as a user, I want that and that, or the variations of the same. But although it seems so straightforward, it appeared not to be as simple as it seems, and that it takes time and iterations to get it right. And why is that? First, because you don't know your product. Even though you think you collected enough of the requirements in the beginning, you simply need time to connect all the dots. And sometimes it takes even more time to get the proper requirements, especially if you have, proactive stakeholders like I do, who will approach you with already prepared functionalities. So you will need to deal with I need a screen with 3 columns and, a list of that and that, which can help you sometimes, but in most of the cases, you will have a lot of back and forth. It means you will be asking open-ended questions. You will trying various techniques and being patient to figure out what is the real need. Yes, we hear you.
Yeah, guys, we can hear you in parallel. Can hear you. So if you can please mute yourself, guys. Okay, let's continue.
Yes, please.
Live.
So, live. Okay, so it means that you will actually need some time and patience to figure out what are the real requirements, what is the real behind. And once you get those requirements, you need to write them down. So to fill in the acceptance criteria, which is the crucial part. And it's challenging a bit to build it right from a day one, right for a team. Because it's a contract between a product owner and the team, but you don't know your team well in the beginning, and also your team doesn't know your product either. So you need time to figure out what works best for you. And in my case, I used to write very detailed acceptance criteria in the beginning. Well, I thought, team will benefit from all that information because products were new, and I used to write detailed paragraphs. Actually, what happened is that we needed few iterations and feedback loops in order to figure out that we don't need the paragraphs, we need the bullet points, and we figure out the measure, what's right for us. So once you build that backlog, for any product owner, ongoing challenge is to build priorities right. Because prioritization is a pure decision making. And if you're working on quite interesting product or product that's solving interesting and important business problem, you will have many people interested in it, which means you will have to manage a lot of stakeholders, their competing perspectives, and sometimes even different priorities. So what to do then? Then listen and try to understand, try to ask questions to figure out is it what they're asking for aligned with the end state, with the vision. Keep the roadmap and backlog always transparent, and always be agile to change those priorities if needed, because this will happen without any doubt. So building both backlog and prioritization should be handled really carefully and transparently, and it cannot be perfect from day one. And your main weapon here is patience, as Tanya said, and the ability to try, to make mistake, and to adapt, which is actually to be agile, right?
Yes. Well, and even for leadership, patience is needed, even if they are not so patient. We need to all accept that it's a work in progress. You won't have a perfect burn down. You will need to get the basic running. We say the backlog, the simple ceremonies. So, in a nutshell, what we learn is reset goals. Agile is not the goal by itself, and it really shouldn't be. And see beyond the agile process. As Tanya said, you need at the beginning, to fake it a bit to get started, but to really focus on maturity, as key metrics like reducing defects or things that you really want to achieve. Then start, iterate, and keep everyone honest. As Gordon has said, we just need to keep moving forward, starting with the simple, basic product backlog to be transparent across the board. Okay, so that was the first challenge. The second one is a bit more complicated, where to find the time. Because when you start a transformation, you are in between worlds. You will still have potentially the Excel sheet or planning with Gantt chart, which is fine, again, need to be agile. So this, you need to realize that this costs time. And our role and my role is, for instance, to manage expectation from the top management to clients to stakeholders. We need to explain what is going on, but especially for our teams, because what's really hard is for the people that are doing the work, it feels like extra work. And the key is to focus on the positive as their work change.
Indeed. We hear a lot people to say Scrum takes time. And when they say that, they most usually refer to the number of meetings they see upfront. And when it comes to product owners, they're known for wearing multiple hats, having usually a number of responsibilities because they are ensuring that communication is transparent, everyone is informed and aligned. Hence, it's a bunch of meetings and half-populated calendar by design. And at first, it seems that Scrum doesn't help with a certain number of additional ones. And it can be a lot in the beginning, but especially because you are not aware what you can get out of those meetings. You need to figure out what time investment is a smart investment. What gets work for you? And in my case, in the beginning, I used to be present on all Scrum ceremonies, all of them, as I thought team will benefit from my presence and building connections and getting important updates. But then I realized that team will approach me whenever they have a question. And if the sprint backlog is kept up to date, then I can get important updates from there. And I don't need to go even to dailies. And yes, I know it's a 15 minutes, okay. But context switching is decreasing your productivity, and simply it wasn't the most efficient usage of my time. But on the other side, there are some other meetings who appear to be a very good investment for a product owner. And at first place, it's a refinement. So as someone who is representing the voice of a customer, you really should use this dedicated time slot to share the vision, to ensure team understands the requirements. It saves a lot of back and forth afterwards. Then we have plannings, where you're setting clear sprint goal and ensuring the team is focused and aligned on short-term goals. And then, of course, sprint reviews, where you're collecting additional feedback and aligning with the stakeholders transparently and in front of the team. So those events are your allies in the long run. And time invested in those activities pays off. It contributes really to the alignment, to the requirement understanding, to value delivery at the end. And I would like to tell you one more story, real one, from our case. We always prepare to see a change when growth phase of a product starts. In our case, we grew from 1 to 3 Scrum teams in 2 years. And we realized it didn't work with 3 separate sprint plannings. Simply, product owner was all 3 almost whole day, and the squads were not aligned among them. And in collaboration with Scrum Master, we decided to try joint planning, where product owner and 1 representative of each of the teams were present, which is quite agile and which appeared to be great. And this small change, where we increase the responsibility of a team, here sits an important lesson for myself and for anyone, actually, that you don't need to do everything alone. You can and you should delegate, because delegation is the single most powerful tool for empowering people you're working with and for building mutual trust. And delegation comes with process and team maturity. You cannot start delegating from day one. It's okay. It takes time. But time is the most precious resource we have, and we are responsible to manage our time and to figure out where we will invest it. So I'll conclude with, if you pick your heads wisely, they'll start working for you. And those meetings will become your allies. So, and the one who knows the best how powerful the smart meetings are, before all, is the Scrum Master. So I'll let now Tanya continue on this topic.
Yes, first of all, we need to facilitate them right, to have them focused, but open as well. But I just want to go a little bit back, first of all, to face it with reality we live in, So we're in such an industry that hard work is not enough. So we need to work smarter. So, okay, that's what we say also, we want to be agile, but what actually should we do? So it's also for that. So meetings are there just because the nature of work has changed. So you just don't have individual work. So you need to work in team. So teamwork is really crucial in here. And when you're in the team, you need to collaborate. So it means you need to meet other people. So you need to have meetings there. So you need to communicate, collaborate. That's actually what it is, collaboration. So you can only trust your Scrum Masters on that. But the best value is when you actually experience that. So let me give you just one example. So I work with the teams who are cross-functional teams. So it means that they have developers, designers, documentation engineers, QA testers all together. So what is crucial for these meetings is that they can understand each other's roles. So let's say we have some groomings there and designer presents some mock-ups in here. So he would like to have something really perfect in the state of the art in there. But on the other hand, developer had some feedback on that, say, okay, or she, this is something that we can work on and so on. It will take more time and so on. So we have product owner there as well. So we all together have to be there to understand each perspective and to get the best possible decision. Why? To have it as soon as possible live. So this is actually what the meetings are for. So to have good decision making. This is crucial part of the meetings actually. And now when you understand all the guys you were working with in the squad, that's fine. Now you need to move to one level up. So you need to understand the whole big picture. You need to be aware of the, of the product change. Where do you fit in there? So first, you need to understand how other guys actually work and what are their obstacles, their perspectives. It means all stakeholders in this product change. So it will actually increase your perceptual skills, when you try to understand and look at something from some different perspective. So as I said before, also for this way, so it will help you to have better and smart decisions that will work. So there is no good idea. So there is no any individual who can just came up, this is good idea. There are no good idea unless it is proven in the practice. So we need to have all good ideas as soon as possible in this practice. So it is also in business, but it is just in life, So it's not anymore that you actually do not have, you're not manager, you're not supposed to have meetings, you're not leaders, but we are all actually leaders, So we are leading ourselves, our career, our families. Every day we make decisions, small ones, big ones, and so on. So that's why we need to understand. And when we do understand the other perspectives, then we come to other challenges there. So, okay, so meetings are real work. So how can I then organize my time and my work? So to do, for example, some coding, but also to save some time for collaboration, because it is really a real work. So how actually to commit? It is a learning process, So you start, you commit, fail, then you learn something out of that, individually, but as a whole team before all.
Thanks. And in conclusion, finding a time, we need to rethink upfront what is being productive and understand that this is really changing. But to do that, there's this concept of being able to let go. Let go, some of the responsibility. It's not only the Scrum Master that will, help everything together. You need to delegate and create accountability, because that goes, both hand in hand, because no one has to be on all meetings, as we just said. And then agree in general that work is different. So we need to have a common understanding and commitment on what is work. Speaking of work and commitment, let's go to our last and maybe most challenging challenge. So when you transform or in doing any change, the biggest issue potentially you will face is actually losing trust and understanding from your stakeholders, your clients, or the people that are involved in the project, because they are either impacted or couldn't wait. So our last section is really to see how to keep date, how to meet existing and future commitment, because this is really critical to be successful. And let me tell you another quick story of agile transformation. This time at a very large bank. Great support, top-down, CTO, CEO, everybody is kind of aligned. They have a lot of Scrum teams, Scrum of Scrum. They hire product owners, Scrum masters, start to work pretty well, But then come a big regulatory change. And you know what's fun with regulatory change is that there is strict deadlines and potentially fines. And I guess you know what happened. They miss one of the key deliveries and basically got fined by regulators. So when the CEO started to ask who is accountable, they say that that's a joint responsibility. Obviously, the reaction was, okay, let's just stop Agile now. Convert all the Scrum Master to project manager. They didn't really like that. So, it's the same for everyone. And us, BlackRock, we cannot afford really to impact clients. You have to manage expectation and plan accordingly. Because remember, Agile doesn't mean no plan, isn't it, Tanya?
Yes, exactly. Agile is not really la pour la, just for the sake of saying it and having it. So it must rely on some reference point in there. So actually it means that you need to have strong focus, but be open as well. So these are not opposites. This is actually a truly art, but it makes sense only if it works, only if you get value out of that. So what actually clients expect is that they actually want you to be predictable before all. But they want you to be in the state of the art as well. So it means they want to know what you're going to deliver, but when you deliver, they want to have incorporated the newest technology in it, ideas, features, everything to be in there. So this is actually the challenge that market is giving to us and Agile is answering to. So just to give you one story from the team I'm working with. So there was some feature, let's say like that was communicated before we did actually have these processes. So there was no communication with all different teams. It was kind of silos there, you know. So somebody has committed to something without taking into an account. So when the time came, everybody was actually disappointed. So what we did is that we set up communication methods there. We start to talk about delivery plans, about timelines, about roadmap. You know, it is much better than only talking about end date and talking about all the scope in there. So this is actually now at this point when we involve all stakeholders, and you know, solution team, delivery team is also one of the stakeholders as well. As other guys in the whole product chain, then actually you can have those and see those benefits that we have in the beginning of communication in here of the presentation. It means that the process starts to work for you. Now you're protected by the process. So involve all stakeholders and be transparent. So no surprises, no unpredictability in delivery and in expectations as well. So the room must be made for negotiations. It has to be clear also for responsibilities, you know, for each phases in the chain, for product management, for product owners, for delivery teams. It must be clear actually whose responsibility it is. But when you have these and build this trust, and everybody is accountable for all of that, so everything is then, it works. So escalate as soon as the scope might change, because it might impact, and it will for sure impact some priorities. So dates, just to conclude, might be fixed, but the scope should be negotiable.
Yes, Tanya, dates might be fixed, but let all of us take one step back, because before any commitments are made, we should come up with the date. And here sits the initial challenge for any product owner, because we will be asked frequently to forecast deliverables, especially in the beginning. And why is that? Because in the beginning, it's usually done on the high level requirements, not those refined, fine-tuned user stories that we should put in the backlog and that delivery team particularly likes. And then once you present it to a team, you can be sure you will not get the proper estimates. There is a thing called optimism bias. Guys are generally overly optimistic, and there is that human tendency to underestimate their effort, which doesn't help product owner here. So we'll need to include some buffer and then to calculate the date. But what else you can do here? You can and you should involve the clients and the other stakeholders from the beginning and agree on the scope and dates together. And be smart also to communicate all the assumptions taken, including capacity, which we tend to forget most usually. Then use this agile mindset that switches perspective from project thinking to iterative thinking, and then think if your customers can benefit from the product earlier. Can they use some features? Can they start early adoption? And then based on that, come up with earlier milestones, communicate dates for each of those phases, because this will be much easier to track in the long run. And when you nicely found those dates, be ready that changes will happen, because it's the only certain thing. And most frequently, when it comes to changes, you'll get first change requests and new enhancements, which is expected, and it's a beauty of Agile because it ensures clients will get what they need at the end. But on the other side, stakeholders are not aware of the impact, most usually, and they tend to see the enhancements as small or insignificant modifications to the overall scope, so you will need to communicate. And the second is change in resourcing. Someone can leave the team, go to maternity leave, something can happen, and it really impacts initial plan. But on the other side, also business tends to consider capacity as a fixed resource, and usually it is not taken into consideration when changed. So as a product owner, what you can do here also is to communicate, as Tanya said, as soon as you realize that something can impact delivery. And communication is about building trust, and we cannot afford to lose trust, right? So educate stakeholders that if there is any change in capacity or requirements, considering the date is fixed, you need to play with the scope, but play with the scope together. And roadmap is your main weapon here, because it reflects both strategy and priorities, and it should keep everyone on the same page. Besides that, don't forget to use the power of sprint reviews to get the open feedback, because it can really boost the morale of a team. And also use the sprint reviews to make sure stakeholders know what is coming next. Communicate plan for the upcoming sprint. People generally love to be included, and this also encourages both mutual trust and trust into the process and delivery itself. And managing the expectations is easier if you involve stakeholders from the initial moment, if you make them part of the process, if you build that roadmap together. And if there is a change, you can share the ownership on decision making. As Tanya said, it's a teamwork. And as a product owner, even though I am the owner of the product, it is not my product. It is our product. And we together are accountable. And this applies to almost everything in our life, even for this presentation today.
We are all accountable. You know, my wife keeps repeating that to me. And we all work in an environment where, let's face it, you know, dates are needed at some point. And what you need is really to think about that front and center. Think about the date. If the scope, you know, is fixed, if the dates are fixed, you know, the scope must be kind of variable. You need to be able to identify what is mandatory and what is discretionary. And most important, then managing expectation. To manage expectation, you need to bring in close to you client stakeholders. You know, using what we just described, like the power of the roadmap. Always have this handy, because Agile needs you to collaborate more and more to keep client informed, and in the end, you know, happy. All right, as we reach the end, you know, if I try to summarize the really very big takeaway from our 3 challenges, you know, getting started, finding time, and still hitting dates, I would say that first is define your goals. You know, think beyond the process, set the metrics and the outcomes you want to achieve. Really ask yourself, what are we going to achieve? And that's the goals. And how can I check, you know, at what stage we are? And that's the metrics. You know, metrics, you know, are not, you know, how close we are to the process. You know, it's really how close we are from the goals that we fix ourselves. For instance, you know, maturity is around, you know, release frequency, lead time to change, downtime of application. Pick very big metrics you want to achieve. Then rethink work. What is productive and what are the roles of the people? I think I really like the presentation just before from Ariel von Benkem, I think, you know, where Agile really means to kind of run away from silo individual tasks and work in a team environment. But this needs to be clear to people, you know, that their work is changing and why is it changing, and we need to help really think about dedicated time to help optimize the time, you know, work together to make it better. And then the last one, you know, managing expectation, your expectation, our team expectation, our stakeholder expectation, our customer expectation, everyone, you need to rethink holistically. Because if you remember one thing really, you know, is that if the trust is lost, it's very hard to get it back. And we all have the tendency to put our head down and execute. And the only thing you can get if you do that is hitting a wall. All right, with that, thank you very much for attending. You know, really wish we could have done this in person. Big thanks to the Scrum Gathering organizer. You guys were trying really to be agile just now. If you have some questions, we'll be at the BlackRock virtual booth. Please feel free to join. Very happy to spend time with all of you. Thank you.
Benoit, Gordana, Tanya, thank you ever so much. This has been truly amazing. We very much like hearing about your first-hand experience on the live real user cases. And we do have a few questions that I think are relevant for quite a big number of our audience. So would it be possible to take 5 more minutes of your time, have those questions answered here, and then obviously we would like to ask all of our audience to use the lunch break to visit your virtual booth, to have further discussions with you. I understand also win potentially some of the prizes. So I would start with the first question. Is that okay with you?
Of course, sure, let's do that.
Awesome. So Donka Tonov is asking, and I think it's addressed to Gordana. I find it interesting that Gordana did not mention a retrospective of the event that she found useful. Question, Gordana, did you stop attending them? And if so, why? Or did you just forget to mention it, which is also possible?
I didn't mention them. I used to attend them in the beginning, that's true, but I stopped attending them. So I love to attend them when I have time, but right now we kind of delegated the responsibility. We have quite mature teams who are doing retrospectives now even on their own. They're putting, all the proposals on their own, and we then review them together, but like quickly on separate meeting. I don't need to spend 3 hours with each of the 3 teams, to listen to their ideas and to be there all the time. This is thing of when teams are mature enough, it can be done like this.
So we absolutely want to keep the retrospective. It's just that sometime it will not be your primary focus as you progress
Exactly.
in work, right? Okay, thanks
Exactly.
a lot. I think this is a question for Benoit, and it comes from Igor Manic, and it says, do you think that every corporation, in terms of corporate culture, is capable to transform its work to agile mode? And if not, should we first focus our work on adapting this culture?
Well, 100%, Igor. I mean, no, a particular corporate culture may not be fit for agile. If it's let's say culture which has been there for a long time and very used to waterfall. Let's say in healthcare, very regulatory environment. You need to really think carefully about implementing agile. You need to go to the top, work with them, think about changing, evolving the culture, and then go again. I think as per our talk, like step by step.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Benoit. And I would say that we have time for one more question, and then we will let you go to your virtual booth where we will be all joining you very, very soon. And I think this could also be a question for you. Oh, we have another interesting one. Sorry, can I nominate 2 questions, please?
All right, let's do it.
So Dragan Savic just asked, how did you tackle the questions from the management when it comes to team accountability when the deadlines are not met?
Well, I'll start, and maybe Gordana, Tanya, you can talk about that.
Mm-hmm.
So this is exactly what we talked about in trying to hit dates. So well, you need to be proactive in thinking that this will happen. Don't hide yourself. It will happen. So you need to really bring all the stakeholders on board before that and explain, again, what is mandatory and what is discretionary. You will always have a particular buffer in your deliveries, whether it's from sprint to sprint or deliverable to deliverable. But this needs to be very clear. And if you go beyond that, the whole, I'll say, product lifecycle management is also something to be defined very carefully, and to be able to explain to the client, the customer, depending, if you're B2B or B2C, that's a different story. But again, you need to think about it upfront and make sure that the mandatory is clear to everyone.
Thank you, Benoit. And I think this question is, could be addressed to you, but also in case Tanya and Gordana have their views, we would love to hear them. It comes from Bojana Andrić. What do you think? Is there maybe a better mindset than Agile in today's business world, especially from the perspective of BlackRock?
I could say I don't think so, but actually, when you say agile, it means that you're aware of all changes that happens around you. So, meaning and being agile means that you very soon react to some changes in there. So it's not like, being agile, okay, with that's it, So it is actually something that is, for your personal life as well, not only for your business. But you have to have a plan, you cannot move away from that and to be all over the place. You have to be focused, as already we mentioned about that. But being agile means that you have early feedbacks and you respond to changes in the market and everything around you. So being agility is a must-have in everyday business and life as well.
Yeah, I'll just add, it's right. I know this is called the Scrum gathering, but you need to go just one step beyond that. Again, back to kind of the Agile manifesto. And I don't think there's a lot of people who will debate if this methodology is better than this one, or will drive different business outcomes. What is key is to define these business outcomes you want to achieve. And in our current world, we know that things are evolving very fast. And to be able to respond to that, you need to have this broad, I would say, agile mindset.
Thank you, Benoit. I'm sorry, I'm taking a look occasionally at the app just to make sure about the questions. There are a few more questions that I think you also have access to. So I will kindly ask you, when people do come to your booth, to perhaps address them or address them in a separate channel. Very, very interesting. And I am getting a few messages, and this is compliments to Gordana, Tanya, and Benoit. I'm getting separate messages that this is really awesome. Oh, I love hearing that. What a great structuring of everything they said. I totally loved the practical cases, the practical examples. So I think it's a very nice way to conclude this. So thank you, BlackRock, for being here with us. Exceptionally useful presentation and discussion. We have enjoyed it, and I think a lot of people will come to the virtual booth and enjoy it further. Do come today. Do also use the tomorrow's day to visit the virtual booth to chat to our lovely panelists here. In the meanwhile, we will have a bit of a shorter lunch break. So we will be starting at 13:35 with the next presenter. So do have lunch. Do perhaps schedule online lunch with Benoit, Tanya, and Gordana, or with somebody else you find on the application. Online lunch, online coffee, or any kind of chat would be really useful. Do visit the booths also of our other sponsors. Everybody's got some amazing prizes, lots of games for you in store. And do keep asking questions. Thank you very much. Stay active on the app, and see you at 13:35 at the Agile Stage.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
See you in our virtual booth. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Cheers.